Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I am the food enthusiast here at J Moore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, just drop your questions into the comment box and you'll see me turn my head occasionally. I'll check from time to time. So if you have questions for our guests, please feel free to put them in the comments section. Her career spans the past 40 years, a career that has led to international competitions, worldwide travel, new languages, cultures, and to educating and hopefully inspiring many young culinarians. She is the 19-year-old girl that left England full of dreams and excitement. She became Susan Notter, the certified executive pastry chef, and is now ready to showcase her love of confectionery as the owner and founder of Elizabeth Moore Chocolates. Good afternoon, Susan.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, it's a joy to have you here. We were sort of chatting a little bit before. So, what's on your plate today other than the show?
Well, I have a new intern starting today. I have interns from the local culinary school. So Eve will be with me for the next 12 weeks. So I'm doing some training. I just got back from Kansas City being with the culinary team. So I was gone all the beginning of this week. And so catching up with restocking my chocolate store.
Uh, you have lived and guest chef around the world in so many places. What brought you to Alabama, to your Alabama home?
Well, the first time I came to Alabama was in 2000, and I moved from the Washington, D.C. area. I had the opportunity to open up a brand new baking and pastry division of a new culinary school. And so it was a project where basically it was an empty building that was given to me and the blueprints. And they said, if you want the project, build the school, build the facility, hire the staff, write the program. And so it was an amazing opportunity that I felt I couldn't pass up. And I had not lived in the South before of the United States. So when I first moved down, I must say it was a little bit of a culture shock. But I got very used to living in Alabama. There's something to be said for Southern hospitality. It's a very livable place. I'm in Birmingham, I'm very near Birmingham. So there's a lot of, the food scene's pretty cool, independent restaurants, and, that's still that small town kind of feel. So I always liked it. And then just job wise, I was here for about 8 years. I came back up to the Pennsylvania area. And then my last job before having the store, I worked for a Swiss chocolate company for Veltlin, and they manufacture very, very high-end, very high-quality couvertures, which I still use. But my job took me traveling all over the country. And it came to the point where it didn't matter where I lived, I just had to get to an airport. So I had the choice to say, okay, where would I like to live again? I still had friends here. Economically, it's very affordable. I mean, it's more affordable. And so 2 years ago, it became actually a very easy choice to move back down to Birmingham, to this area, and which I did. So, summers are hot and humid, but the rest of the year is beautiful, and there's a lot of very good things here. So that was why I made my decision to move back to the South.
After all these years of competitions and teaching and all the travel that you've done, you finally opened your own store, Elizabeth Moore Chocolates.
Yes.
Why now? And are you still teaching?
Why now? Well, really, it was financially. I had, for the first time in my life, my kids are now grown. I'm not supporting others necessarily. And it just was, financially in the past, because of having children and because of, being a single parent, my responsibility was, I had to, obviously, have a home, put food on the table and all of that. So I wasn't ever really in a position where I could take a massive risk and know that, I could sustain. I I came to a point now that I could. And so part of it was that I had the, for the first time in my life, really the financial means to do it, to set this up. And maybe part of it was also I turned 60 and thinking, okay, what are my next 5 years or 10 years going to look like? And I think it's still, when we get into this profession, it's still everybody's dream to have their own little store, And the past 4 years with Feltling taught me a lot about chocolate. I've always been in the food industry, always been in the pastry industry, but I had a real opportunity the last 4 years to really focus on chocolate and get to know it really, really well. And so, and putting together the infrastructure for a chocolate store is a little bit maybe easier than having a full-fledged bakery, where you've got to have big mixers and big ovens and, cooling systems and,
right.
and hoods. So just the financial infrastructure of what I did was a little bit easier, and it's a little bit more easy to manage as well. So now I'm living my dream. I have my own kitchen, my own work environment. I control what goes on the shelf. And if I decide to make something with whatever fruit or whatever puree or whatever I get, I can do that. I don't have to ask anybody's permission.
Can you? Right.
Which
This
is nice.
is yours. Right. Well, your chocolates are gorgeous.
Thank you.
Okay. So what's the difference between truffles and bonbons?
Okay. I get asked that a lot by our customers. So truffles classically would be a ganached filled sphere. So truffles classically are round as to what we would recognize. And then inside them, we have white milk and dark truffles. And we also have truffles that we put rum or we've got bourbon truffles as well. So typically a truffle is a round sphere of ganache that looks like the truffle that comes out of the ground, often kind of knobbly a little bit. We dust them in cocoa powder. A bonbon is something that typically is a molded shell and has different fillings. So for example, I have hazelnut, so I have a gianduja filling with a crunchy filling. I have, say, strawberry, where I might actually make a strawberry jelly, and the strawberry jelly goes inside it with also a ganache made of the strawberry puree. I have ones that are filled with soft caramel. So the word bonbon, it comes from France. In England, we would call them chocolates. And in Germany, you would call them praline. But the word bonbon seems to have stuck in this country. And it's kind of the verbiage that people begin to know. But I do get asked that a lot because a lot of people that come into the store have never seen a chocolate shop like ours before. And so it's a lot of a little bit of an education as to what we're using. We give out a lot of samples and we talk about chocolate origins and we get people to taste things. And once they taste it, they really understand it. And we are using really the premium chocolate in the world. I'm not cutting corners. There's no compromise.
Right. I know some people are confused and they look at the chocolate bars. This one's 65%, this one's 75%. Can you tell people what the difference is? I mean, they see it, some already understand it,
Yeah.
but let's explain the percentages that they're seeing now on the chocolate bars.
Yeah. So the percentage really means the percentage of cocoa butter plus cocoa mass. So you might have a white chocolate bar, which has no cocoa mass in it because none of the dark component. It only has cocoa butter. So we have bars with 36% cocoa butter content in the white. When you get to the milks and the darks, you're getting higher. So that would be a percentage of still cocoa butter plus the non-fat solids, which would say, you could say that's the pressed cocoa. And in terms you might see on the bar, cocoa mass, cocoa liquor is another term that's used. And this is the mixture of, it's cocoa butter and cocoa mass. Also, companies say like Feltling, like I use, they will also add additional cocoa butter to control the viscosity of the product. So the highest cocoa content I have is 88%. It's one from Venezuela. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bitter. It's more bitter. It's more intense, but not necessarily bitter. So don't assume just because it's a higher percentage, it has a bitter flavor profile. It will have a more intense flavor profile, but it becomes, you know, a lot of the process of manufacturing, of roasting, of how it's roasted, you know, you can over roast just like coffee, and you'll have a bitter burnt taste to coffee, or you can have a gentler roast where you're really trying to enhance and pull out the flavors of the beans, which is what we want to do. So it really is the cocoa content.
Right.
The bar.
You know, the people down near Birmingham have the ability, you do classes and you do tastings of chocolate. Can you recommend if somebody wanted to do a tasting at home with their friends?
Okay, so I would order some different percentages and try and order a few different origins. So a lot of the more premium lines will tell you what the origin is of the chocolate. And so what I would do is choose, if you say doing darks and you want to do some red wine pairings, or even with some cognacs and things like that, because liquors go very, very well with chocolate too, is begin with, maybe start with like a 60% and work your way up. But look for different origins as well, because the different origins have different flavor profiles too. So here at the store we have Dominican Republic, and I have a white in that. So it's beautiful, clean, milky, floral notes to it. Right. And then I'll have Venezuela, which tends to have more red fruit notes and a little bit of like a dried fruits kind of cinnamon finish. And then I've got a couple from Madagascar, and then Madagascar tends to be a little bit citrusy, more lemon notes. So if you can get the different origins, you'll definitely taste, even if you get different origins, it's all 60%, they'll all taste different.
They'll all taste different.
That's what I would do is focus on origin maybe, and not necessarily on percentage.
The Great British Bake Off has won people over. It is endeared to many, many people. Mm-hmm. And the participants become endeared to people versus characters driven competitions.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many have come to love this show versus, you know?
Yeah, I think it's genuine. I think Paul Hollywood might say something that, oh, this is overbaked or something like that, and is maybe a little harsh, critical. And then Mary Berry comes and says, well, it's fine. It's okay. I think the characters also of the people, the competitors are just everyday Brits. They're from all walks of life. They're from the north to south. They have the accents, their teeth are crooked. Makeup's not perfect, hair's not perfect, but they're real people. And I think here in the US, we focus too much on maybe what everything looks like. And here it's like with a lot of the shows now, it's casting. They're casting characters that are going to line up, and some of them are going to be neurotic, and some are going to break down, and some of them are not going to be loved. And so they look at it more as a character casting rather than the skills or ability casting. And I know they tried to do the Great American Baking Show, and it just didn't come across the same way.
Well, yeah.
Different people.
Yeah, they're now filming the Great American Bake Off in Britain in the same space as the Great British Bake Off.
Okay.
And there's also a Celebrity American Bake Off. So that'll come Christmas, and then the other series will come after the first of the year. I don't want to ignore all your accomplishments, and they are many, and from many gold medals from the Culinary Olympics to just many competitions. And now you are coaching the national USA team for the February competition in Stuttgart. Can you tell us more about how these competitions work,
Yeah.
what it takes to be on the team, and I'm just going to open the floor and talk away.
Okay. So the Culinary Olympics has a very long history, dating back to the 1800s, and it's always been in Germany. In the past, it was in Frankfurt, and then it moved around a little bit. The last time it was held is 2020, and the next time it will be 2024. National teams compete, regional teams, individual entries from all over the world. So the last time I was there was 2020. I was on the US regional team. I started off coaching, right, and then the pastry person, I just realized this is not going to work. So I didn't want to let the team down, so I ended up being on the team. So the first time I went to the Culinary Olympics was in 1984, and it was with Ewald, my ex-husband, and we were on a team for Zurich, Chef de Circle de Cuisine from Zurich. And it was the first time we'd actually ever attended, because we did a lot of pastry competitions and things, but this is a whole culinary arena. So the first time we went was back then, and it was pretty amazing. The tables change every day. The teams come every day. So the national team, what they have to do is they do, there's something called Restaurant of Nations. So within a 6-hour window, they prepare a 3-course menu for 110 people. And it's in a set-up kitchen. There's number of teams go each day, and people who visit the show can buy tickets and eat from the particular team they want to try. And it's called the Restaurant of Nations. So that's a 3-course menu, 6-hour preparation, a 2-hour service window. So we've been practicing that. And then you want to, there has to be a fish course, and obviously an entree, and then the dessert, but everything, has to really flow very well. The plate presentations, the culinary skills, the flavor profiles, they're judged on taste, they're judged in the kitchen. There has to be HACCP plans for sanitation. Sanitation waste is massive in Europe, so everything has to be separated and labeled and purposely done. They're even like looking at how much plastic wrap do you use, or can you use recyclable containers, that there's no waste. So really, that's a really big focus. Sustainability of what we're using is very, very important. So that's one part of the competition. And then the next part is called the chef's table, and this is fairly new. So they will prepare a multi-course menu, a gourmet menu for 12 judges, and they have to serve it tableside. So the team members have to go out and explain to the guests what everything is. Part of it is also a platter, which is a fish preparation, which they also have to go out and cut and slice and serve tableside. There's a vegan course coming more and more. They're looking at food trends and nutrition. Vegan course, entree course. There's desserts, there's petit fours. There's a showpiece that goes along with the table as well. And for that, they also have 6 hours and also a service window of that. So we'll actually be competing in Luxembourg in November, the first competition. That's called ExpoGast. And there'll be multiple international teams there that will do the same program. So every day, we'll get there, and then we have the Restaurant of Nations, and then 2 days later is the chef's table. So they don't put you back to back on days, they stagger it a little bit, but that's what the national team has to do. And then the regional teams that go, they will do cold display tables where they'll have a display platter, they'll have multi-course menus. The dessert part of it that I did in 2020 was showpiece, 4 different petit fours, and 4 different plated desserts. And that goes on the table, and it has to look really good for display and look appetizing. The judges don't taste that, it's just purely visual. But you have to be able to portray flavors through the visual aspects of the food, and have things that will hold up, don't dry out. So a lot of things are glazed. We use like an aspic type of glaze on things so it stays fresh. So the team will compete in November in Luxembourg. And right now we meet every month in a different city at a different culinary school to practice. So they do the full runs. They do the 110 portions.
Really?
And yes. And then the school invites guests to eat the food. And then they turn around the next day and they do the chef's table. So it's up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get to the kitchen, eat something, 6 a.m. start, and it's timed. And then we've also had, so I'm the pastry coach, but I also watch what everybody else does. We have 2 team managers, we have a logistics manager, and then there's another culinary coach as well. And there's six core team members, and then plus a couple of helpers that can be in the kitchen and do dishes and,
Right.
you know, bring and fetch and that kind of thing. So, you know, altogether, we're probably I'd say a group of maybe 15 that meets every time. But it pushes, you know, and every time we give feedback and critique, and every time it should improve and get better, and sometimes it doesn't, and then other times it's like this little turning point, and it's like, okay. And we even brought one of the coaches over from Sweden, who's one of the a judge and is very, very experienced.
Right.
And we had him come in to Texas and watch the whole training session. And he took pictures and afterwards put together a presentation and went through everything that was wrong. And it was a lot of pictures, but it's tough, but it's the only way that you can, you know, we're competing against the world arena and against teams, and the Scandinavian teams are really strong right now. Norway, Sweden, Switzerland's good, very good, Singapore. And it's almost like a military operation. The degree of, you know, difficulty, the attention to detail, how the chefs present themselves, they are dressed, you know, clean shaven, and because it's the only way, we have to fit that mold, and if it's the only way that we're going to be successful with it.
The Norwegians, their food is very clean, fresh. It's not
Yeah,
overdone from
yeah,
everything that I've seen. It's
you're
not
right. It
overworked.
is. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Spun sugar is your passion. Um, I listened to some interviews. You actually made edible ornaments for the White House Christmas
Mm-hmm.
tree.
Yes, yes, we did.
That was um, before Trump.
It was quite a long time ago. Yeah,
Okay.
we did like sugar plum fairies out of pulled and blown sugar and little hanging Christmas trees, and Santa disappearing down the chimney, and they hung on the trees. And what was really cool that we actually got invited to go see the trees when they were finished. So that was a
How
really nice experience.
that's wonderful.
Yes.
Um, can you tell people, we hear the terminology temper chocolate. Why do we temper chocolate? How do we temper chocolate?
Okay, so we temper chocolate. So high quality chocolate, or we call it couverture, the only fat it contains is cocoa butter. So if you say go and pick up candy melts, for example, it's just hydrogenated fats, flavors, colors, that kind of thing. But when you have a pure chocolate, you've got basically cocoa butter, cocoa mass, sugar, vanilla. That's basically it. So the cocoa butter is a fat that sets at different points. So if we were just to take cocoa butter down and melt it and let it reset, it does not reset in its same form. So if you would say to take Crisco, melt it down, let it reset, it looks exactly the same. When we take cocoa butter, we melt it and we reset it, it starts to set at all different points. So if you look at the dish, it will have little dots forming, and then a few hours later there'll be some more. And it ends up looking like the cratered landscape of the moon. Really very, very even, very bubbly. And the fat is what makes the chocolate set. So the fat has to be in a stable form to be able to set correctly. So I don't know, maybe, you know, people have got chocolate bars, they've got too warm in the car, you take them home, you stick them in the refrigerator, you open them up, and they're kind of
What?
streaky and
Yeah.
gray. That's cocoa butter that's separated out and it's risen to the surface and it's reset again. Now, when you eat that, because the cocoa butter is set in a different form, it's not going to have that really smooth mouthfeel and that really smooth melt. But if we temper it, we can recreate that. So tempering is really creation of the stable crystals. So cocoa butter contains actually 6 different crystal forms. Only one of them is stable, the beta 5 crystal. So if I temper, and I'm doing it over a water bath, I will bring the water to a boil, turn it off, and then I will put my bowl of chocolate over like nice and tightly fitting. You don't want any steam escaping because moisture is also not good for chocolate. And I will melt it down gradually, stirring it. So my melting point is up to 120 degrees. At that point, all the crystals have melted out and it's nice and fluid. Now, if I'm tabling, I'm going to take part of that out onto like a cold slab, marble, quartz, granite, and I'm going to cool that down by moving it around. I have an offset and a scraper, and I move it around until it begins to just slightly thicken a little bit. And at that point, it's about 80 degrees. So we melt it to 120, and we need to cool it to about 80. At 80 degrees, the crystals we need, those beta 5 crystals, those stable ones, begin to form. And now I put that back in the bowl with about a third of the warm chocolate and mix that through. So the stable crystals remain and the unstable crystals get melted off. And our working temperature is about 90. So you really have to remember 3 temperatures. 120 for melting, 80 for cooling, which at that point you're creating the stable crystals, and then you're bringing it back to working temperature of 90. And then I always do a test before I start. I dip a spatula in or something flat, and I should see it begin to set within about 5 minutes. Also touch the bowl. If you think of your working temperature of being 90 degrees and your body temperature is 86 point whatever, and you feel the bowl and your bowl feels warm, it's over your body temperature. So it's too warm. Okay. So you need to keep it on, cooler side. You can also, we call it seeding. So you can melt your chocolate, and then when you buy the coins or the little rondos or discs, they're in temper. So you can actually add those coins to your melted chocolate and stir it through, and that will add those little seeds back to it. So tempering it's practice, it's a process. Think of it as a crystallization process. And you're creating the correct crystals, which will form the seed, which will make everything set correctly. If it doesn't work, chop it up, melt it back down again, and start again. Don't throw it away.
Okay. Tools. I finally broke down a couple years ago and got a scale. Because baking is torture for me. It's a challenge. But I know personally, if I was going to tell somebody who was going into baking, is get a scale, weigh your flour, weigh everything on the scale, because some people say stir up your flour, spoon it into the cup, measure it off, just weigh it. Do you have any other tool that you might suggest to people if they're getting into baking that would be handy?
I think, silpats are good to line your sheet pans. They're definitely, you're always going to reuse them. Very useful. Get some nice spatulas, whether it's a rubber spatula for your bowl, little bowl scrapers. A lot of companies will supply them to their customers. Always good for scraping out bowls. And then really just some good offset spatulas. So it looks like has a little angle on it. So when you're spreading things, your hand isn't in the way. Really, the scrapers, the spatulas is what we use the most of.
There's so many things here. Ruby chocolate. That came about, about 5 years ago? I don't see in what you have that you work with it. Am I correct? Or
no, because I pretty much work only with Felflin, and that is a Barry Callebaut product. I personally, it has an acidic flavor profile. Personally, it's not my favorite. It also, when you add it to fillings, because somehow in the acidity, like if I was using it for a filling, it goes kind of a grayish brown.
So it loses,
yeah, it loses. I think for bars and things, and some of these things are just. I'm very much a traditionalist and a purist, and I like really good tasting milk chocolate, good tasting dark chocolate, different flavor profiles. I love the purees from France and things like that. And sometimes I find these things, it's just okay. It's another gimmick or whatever. It's just I know it's good product.
You're a
Yeah, it's
traditionalist.
just not in my wheelhouse. I was actually given 2 bags recently. I still haven't broken them out.
Yeah. I want to remind people your information has come up in the comment section. But if you want to learn more about Susan Notter, and you can find her website, which is elizabethmoorechocolates.com, and all her connects to Instagram, go look at the photographs of the things that she has created. I think we're out of time. I'm going to ask you my typical questions at the end of the show. You've been forewarned. Uh, what would you say if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice? What would it be to your 18-year-old self?
Build good relationships. I mean, really, a lot of what we do. I mean, my profession to me has always been my anchor and my stable, safe place. What has come along the way that has messed that up sometimes is personal relationships. So I think make really smart choices. Don't let others destroy your dreams.
Believe in yourself. What's
Yes.
the What's the best bite you had this week? I don't know if you have a sweet tooth. You might
Oh,
make this, but
yeah, I eat chocolate every day. So I was just with the culinary team for 2 days in Kansas City, and they worked their way through the whole tasting menu. So I get to taste everything they make and all the dishes. We had some really good lamb this week. So I wouldn't say my best bite this week is a sweet bite, but we had some really good, nice
okay,
American
great.
lamb. It was good.
What was your ultimate culinary fail?
Um, Probably I went to well, maybe there's probably a couple. There always are, right? I think I tried to do something kind of very different and innovative for a pastry chef of the year competition with the ACF, and I did a plated dessert where I kind of layered a pistachio cremo in the bottom of the dish, and then I built like a jellied cherry mixture on top. And I thought the cherries, it was an innovative way of doing it and had crumble and stuff with it. They just didn't get it. So probably I should have just gone with a cherry tart and pistachio ice cream and I would have been fine.
Okay. If you could wake up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would it be?
A new talent. Oh, well, one thing that I do love in addition to pastry, I love dancing. So ballroom and Latin. So maybe I would just be a great dancer.
You probably are a great dancer anyhow, but you would, at least the hours wouldn't be as rough, right?
That's right. No.
Um, and what's next for Susan Otter? What's coming up other than, are you doing any demos? Are you traveling? What's coming up?
Well, I'm going to, at the end of this month, to Cleveland for the American Culinary Federation and doing a demo for the chef's chapter there on like two, 3-step desserts. So trying to find ways that the chefs can fairly easily do plated desserts without having to have a pastry chef, because everywhere right now we're short on labor. So I'll be working on ideas for that and going to Cleveland, of course, the culinary team, and then Luxembourg. It's going to be in November, and I'm getting married.
Well, as they say in my hood, mazel tov.
Thank you. September 25th. It's going to be small, but where we're having the event is at a local chef's private home where he does a tasting table, and he has a supper club. So it's going to be very much food based and gourmet eats.
Well, is this a Southern gentleman or somebody else that you had met?
No, it is a Southern gentleman. He
Okay.
actually does industrial flooring, so nothing to do with the industry, which is a very good thing. And he did my floors. The floors in the store look like melted milk chocolate.
All right. What didn't I ask you that I should have?
Oh, well, I think we covered a lot, competitions. And maybe, I think for me, a lot of people ask why, and I did the first competition when I was 17, and the last one I was 60. So it spanned a lot of time. But I think for me, the competitions and you have to allow yourself to be judged, to be critiqued. You're not always going to like what you hear. But for me, it's really pushed my skills and my precision and the way I approach things, very far in a short time. So allowing yourself to be put in that arena or putting yourself in there pushes you a long way. People are judging you, people are watching you all the time, but you become a better professional because of it. So I think that's a really important thing for me. And it's taken me all over the world. It's given me opportunities, this whole industry has, to travel, to be part of chefs' events, food and wine tastings. I went to an all-female event in Singapore at the Raffles Hotel. And I've been to places in parts of the world that without the food industry, I would not have had the opportunity to do this. So if you want the opportunity to travel, it's hard work. And you have to be willing to put the hours in and the work in. And sometimes you make sacrifices and compromises along the way. But if you're passionate about the industry, it's amazing, and it can give you a great deal back.
I'm sure that we could talk quite a bit. I know you have a chocolate shop to run, and I need to let you get back to that. But I thank you so much, Susan,
Thank you.
making the time to chat with us here at J Moore. And I wish you all good things, marriage, chocolate. May it all come together and embrace you. All the
Thank
best.
you.
And as I like to end, moi. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, everyone. We are changing it up next week. The show is going to be on Wednesday, August 24th, same time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, when my guest will be Diana Edelman, founder of Vegan's Baby, a business dedicated making vegan life easier and vegan dining more approachable. Her expertise has led to an ongoing partnership with the renowned James Beard Foundation, where she's responsible for curating chef-driven plant-based dinners at the famous James Beard House. In 2019, Travel and Leisure named Vegan's Baby's Las Vegas tour as one of the top 9 tours in Las Vegas, top 9 vegan tours in the world. Forgive me, I messed that up. Vegan's Baby not only offers tours in Las Vegas, but also curates and hosts tours in Thailand, Europe, Lisbon, Madrid, Paris, and there are more cities and countries being involved with that. So next week on Wednesday, Diana Edelman of Vegan's Baby. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving or Instagram at Dara Cooks. All shows are immediately archived in video form on J Moore Living's Facebook page and J Moore Living's website, jmoreliving.com. Feel free to dig into the past shows. Listen when you're walking, when you're at the pool at this time, runs, whatever. Dig in, listen to the shows. We truly appreciate it when you share the show with friends and family. You help the show grow. As I like to say, be kind, smile, and say hello to people. And as always, may your plates remain full.